For the fourth time, the United States of America are crowned champions of the world, and for the very first time they've done it on European soil. It is finished at the Stade de Lyon in the final in victory and joy for the United States.
It is a huge win for us, for women's sports, for women. The justice comes in the next generation, never having to go through what we went through. It's equal pay across the board from here on out.
You were listening to Give and Go
with Sam Carey
and Rotas Wadera, only on Girls Soccer Network. Hello and welcome. This is episode 77 of Give and Go. I'm your host, Rotas Wadera, with my co-host
Sam Carey.
Thank you so much for being with me today, Sam. This is a jam-packed episode for you. The NWSL is back. Before we get into what we're going to talk about this episode, though, we got to get into some housekeeping items first. Of course, for all the latest and greatest from the world of women's soccer, go to www.girlsoccernetwork.com. Check us out on Instagram at Girls Soccer Network and on Blue Sky as well. Of course, if you want to get in touch with Sam or I, you can get me on Instagram at RowinDatas25, ROWINDATS25. And Sam, where can people get in touch with you?
I'm also at Instagram at Sam Carey Angel.
All right. So, as we mentioned earlier, NWSL is coming back. We have more audio from Media Day from Sam Coffey, from Ashley Sanchez, and from Savannah DeMello. So we're going to get into all that. A season preview. We're going to go to England as well. And we're also going to get a chance, I'm really excited for this, to talk about Sam's experiences in Sweden, how her season's going, and also just to learn more about it, because that's one of the few leagues that we don't have a lot of access to and don't really know much about it. So it's going to be great to get some education from Sam on the Swedish league. All right. So we're going to kick it off with, of course, the NWSL is kicking off. Finally, the wait is over. Thank God, because it has been a long wait. And I mean, you're in Europe, so you get to watch a lot of the other stuff. I don't get to watch like the FAWSL and all those other leagues because the time difference makes it a little difficult. But what are some games that stand out to you to start the season?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. First of all, NWSL is back. I'm sure so many of us are so excited about it. Even from me on the European standpoint, I don't get to watch games live. I often know scores before I watch games, but it's just more soccer to watch. It's more content. It's more high-level soccer just to enjoy. I was saying to Ro before the call, I have a 5-hour bus ride tomorrow to the south of Sweden. Great. I got 2 games I get to watch on that bus ride. So I think everyone's just buzzing that we finally get to see an action-packed league take off again. And with that, we have some incredible matchups, I think, from the start. And, we of course have our temperature on where we think teams are. We have a little preseason rankings of what we put together, but there is a lot of unknown this year. And that's exciting too, to see how teams really come out of the gate. Some games that I have circled, I mean, my biggest one has got to be the Sunday showdown in the sunny states is what I'm calling it. I get a little alliteration there, but you have Angel City versus San Diego. Those always, bring waves. So forgive my terrible pun there. When you talk about those two teams playing, and I really think that having a derby to kick off the season is something super exciting. You have Kansas City versus Portland. I think this is now the 3rd time those teams have kicked off the season against each other. Last year, I don't know if you remember, that was a 9-goal extravaganza.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to see the fireworks that come out of that one. And then I think the one I'm actually most excited for when we're looking at growth is Bay, Utah. These are 2 teams that, struggled a little bit last year as their first year as expansion teams, but throughout the season, we saw them really take flight. We saw Bay, make the playoffs. We saw Utah on a huge rise last year. And so there's a lot of excitement there, and I'm really excited to see what off-season moves did for those 2 programs.
I agree completely on that. I think ultimately when, we're going to get into our preseason rankings, but that probably is the most exciting matchup in terms of what's to come. And we don't know. There's so many unknowns about how these teams are going to get better. To what degree are they going to get better? These other teams, Orlando, Washington, KC, we know what they're about. We know what they added. We know that they're going to be among the elite. But Utah and Bay FC, where are they going to fall? That is a very interesting question to ask. I personally, think we should get into kind of who do you think is going to finish last?
Oof. Great question.
Do
Great question to
we
start.
go?
We're starting off piping hot here.
Yes, we
Okay.
are. Give me
If
the tea.
I'm thinking who I have to finish last in the NWSL, this is something I think you and I very disagree on, which I'm very excited. But my
Yes.
initial look is San Diego. And
Wow.
I think when you have the turmoil of the front office that they had last year, and I think I heard something crazy today that they have 11 players on their roster that were on their roster last year. And
Mm,
4 or 5 of those players came in August of last year. So you really have,
mm,
7 players that have been there for over 6 months. I think you have a lot of transition there. And then with their average age just being so low, that's nothing against some young guns in the league. We've seen them do great. There is a hard, they've had some big international signings, but I feel like there's going to be a gelling that needs to happen, and there just hasn't been the time. And so that's my prediction is the last place finish from San Diego.
This is very, very interesting. Now, I do agree with you on there is a lot of turnover, and in terms of really what they have, it has not looked great. To the way that the last year and a half has gone for them after winning the Shield, it has not been smooth sailing for the Wave. So I do see that there. My reason for putting them, I have them in the playoff hunt. I just feel that their top heavy attacking talent is going to have to do enough if they are going to make the playoffs. Maria Sanchez has the big contract. She has the big money. She has to perform. I mean, looking at her numbers from last year, 24 games played, I think 1 or 2 goals and just a handful of assists, that's not going to cut it for what she's getting paid. So, her, along with the addition of Delphine Cascarino, who is one of the best players in the world, I think if they can figure out how to play with each other, I think they will be okay. But like you said, there is a lot of turnover, and I believe it's Jonas Eidevall, right,
Yeah.
who is
Yeah,
the new
we got a
coach now. So
Swede. We got a Swede over there. I think if you're talking about Swede's interest in the NWSL, I think everyone's looking at San Diego, mostly just because of that's being the big Swedish connection.
right,
And frankly,
yeah.
he's a very controversial coach at Arsenal too. So it will be interesting his transition into the NWSL.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a watched coach for sure. Everyone's going to be wondering kind of how is he going to transition to the NWSL. So I will get into my last place pick right now. For me, it is the Seattle Reign.
Mm.
I have been watching them. I mean, I've always watched them. I've always loved the individual talent that they have with Jess Fishlock and Ji So-yoon and some of the great players that they have. And of course, you add Lynn Biendelo, but I don't know if that quite simply is enough because that's the only major addition they brought. It's an aging roster, and they have to make it through what is an incredibly grueling season. They've been on the decline. I just don't see where they're going to get the goals from if it's just going to be Lynn Williams or Lynn Biendelo, excuse me. Because Jordan Heidema, Veronica Latsko, their whole setup, like Laura Harvey just hasn't changed it. You know what I'm saying? Like for whatever reason, she's had this core group for like 4 years and just refuses to change tactics, she just plays the same way. Like, how can you expect to do the same thing over and over again and get different results, right? You have to change something. And so that's why they finished second to last year. And it's essentially the same group that they're bringing back. So Lynn Biendelo has to play the whole year, and she has to score. She has to get to double-digit goals if this team is going to be a playoff team. And if she doesn't, I don't see it going well for them. Moving on though to number 13. Who do you got?
My answer here is the Chicago Stars. And I think that's because when you look at the Chicago Stars roster, I have more questions than answers. So this is one of those teams that, hey, they might completely surprise me opening weekend and be doing something different and something exciting. But first off, I mean, the obvious question is Mel Swanson. And we've known it's become out that she will not be with the squad on opening weekend. She has not returned to Chicago. So with that, obviously they're giving her her time and giving her what she needs right now. But there's question marks there about who will fill that massive gap because she did, frankly, carry Chicago on their backpack for a long, long time. I think the other thing I really look at when I look at Chicago, though, is their back line. And I mean, you have Alyssa Nair in goal. Trust me, that's a huge advantage. Do not get me wrong. But your back line, they are currently advertising that they have 6 defenders signed. However, you do have Sam Staub out with the season-ending injury. I believe and they had another one during international break, another defender get hurt. So I believe they have 3 current healthy defenders. They also
Oh,
did just sign Justina Gaynor, which I think is a fantastic signing for them. Out of Michigan State, played against her for 4 years as well. Fantastic human being, fantastic signing. I am intrigued though. They did advertise her as defender. I'm sure she's a versatile player, but at Michigan State, she was a number 10. She got
right.
Big Ten midfielder of the year as an attacking center mid. So I'm guessing they're trying to convert her to fill a position somehow. Maybe we're seeing a three back out of them. I would predict that. But I think there's a lot of questions. And because of that, that's where I have them at 13.
I agree with you. I had them slightly higher, but ultimately neither one of us have them making the playoffs, essentially. For me, coming in at number 13, I have Portland. I genuinely believe that this is going to be a tough, tough year for them. They have been on the new ownership group ever since then. When this team is the gold standard of the league. They were how you run an organization for so long of just how to have success year in and year out. Obviously, there's been some plenty of controversy behind the scenes that people will disagree with me on that and say, "How dare you? Those owners and people were terrible. How dare you?" But like they were successful for so long, and now you factor in, like we talked with Morgan Weaver at Media Day, and she was so excited about the year, and then hear about her injury. That is devastating for this team because not too long after that. Sophia Wilson, of course, as the internet broke, I'm sure we all saw that she is going to have a child, which is incredible. Congrats to her. I'm sure the Thorns, if you ask them about the timing of it, they might be a little upset about it. But like for it to literally be happening to start the season is honestly incredible. But it's one of those things where she's basically done for the year. So without those two players, unless Rylan Turner becomes like a superstar before our very eyes this season, they're going to be in big trouble. I don't see how they don't have Christine Sinclair to bail them out anymore, to score a random penalty goal or do whatever she normally does. So Jessie Fleming has to take up even more. Her legs are gone, it looks like to me. She's been a national team player since she was 17, 18, played in multiple World Cups, played for Chelsea, played for UCLA before she was like 23. Now she's getting a little bit older, and it's like, are the legs going to hold up for her? Because I felt like she didn't perform to the level that she could last year. So that's why for me, I just don't see the Thorns having much success this season. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I have them in a similar spot. We'll get to them, but they're not much higher in my rankings. And
Mhm.
I agree, one of the biggest, I don't say red flags, but worrisome things to me was not only Morgan Weaver getting injured and having her season-ending injury, but also Nicole Payne and Marie Mueller. All three of those ACLs came in preseason camp this year. So that is just one of those things. Three ACLs in the span of a month is absolutely heartbreaking news. Do not get me wrong. Absolutely heartbreaking for a team. But Nicole Payne and Marie Mueller are also like two of your big defenders. And so not only losing Wilson and Weaver, you factor out maybe struggle with the attack, but you also now have a struggle with defense. So I think this puts immense pressure on Sam Coffey to be able to hold down the midfield. And listen, we all know she's an incredible player. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we also all heard the rumors during last window about European interest in Sam Coffey. And so
Mhm.
I think Portland is definitely one of those teams that is going to have to band together.
We actually get to speak with her a little bit at NWSL Media Day. This was at the time when she was not officially named the captain yet, but she essentially was the captain at this time. So you kind of get to hear her thoughts on what it means to be a leader of the team, what it means for her to be a part of this group. And she's so incredibly humble and really just cares so deeply about her team and the game that, like you said, she is a true, true talent and somebody who I love to watch. I think I mentioned it last time, but she's one of the throwbacks who tucks her shirt in and is like all proper. Like that was me. I used to tuck my shirt in and do all that stuff. So I have a affinity for Sam Coffey. But yeah, here's a clip of Sam, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
How would you approach being more of taking on more of a leadership role, and who else would you look to sort of help in that regard, given that this is such a big transition season for the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I can't put into words how fortunate I've been to spend the last 3 years learning from like the likes of Becky and CP and playing in sort of like I mean, I think just like the best leaders that women's soccer has seen, period. And I've just learned so much from them, and to be able to be even a small part of that leadership, like under them and looking up to them, has been such an incredible opportunity, and I do feel like in learning from them, I have tools and things that I've learned that I can now apply to this new life and experience without them here, unfortunately. I wish I could be here forever, but I think it's honoring that, and like I said, continuing to push the standards that they have set and honor their legacy while also being authentic to who I am and leading in the ways that I feel like are my strengths. And I think for me, that's just lifting up the people around me and being someone that is a great teammate and is reliable and consistent. And I think I've said this before, but I think for me, like I'm big on servant leadership and just putting the team before myself and the people around me before myself. And ultimately, like what the team needs is above anything that I need. And so, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, looking around the locker room and not seeing their faces and having them alongside me. But again, I feel so fortunate to have learned from them for these last few years, and I can proudly say that I do feel prepared to kind of step forward now, maybe into a new role. And in terms of who to look to, I mean, I take your pick from our team. Honestly, we have so many incredible women and leaders in their own right. Not everyone is a vocal leader or maybe someone who's an outright like captain figure, but I do think we all lead in our own ways and unique ways. And I think even the likes of a Jessie, a Bella, Mac, who comes with such a wealth of international experience too. Like we have so many different journeys and paths on our team that I think really suit our team well, and that we need everyone to step up at the end of the day. And so, I know I will do my best to do that, and I know the team is going to do that as well. And so I do feel really excited about what that's going to look like and just kind of this new era that we're in.
Again, that was Sam Coffey, the new captain of the Portland Thorns. And yeah, while it might not be the best season for Portland coming up, it is cool to see Sam really get her due and see kind of to get to this level. She's just been on a steady rise. Who do you have coming in at number 12?
Yeah, for me, number 12, when I looked out of it, this is an Angel City squad to me. And, I think once again, this is another team that maybe has more questions than answers. And I'm really excited to see what they come out with on Sunday night in the Derby. They're able to see, you got the Thompson sisters. We know that, assuming that Giselle's going to be your left back, you have a few options for right back. You have a couple exciting, fresh faces. I think signing Maisie Hodge is going to be great. I can definitely see her getting minutes in the midfield. She's just one of those scrappy players out of college that will do the dirty work. And I think that's needed on a team like Angel City right now. I do think though, like there's been so much question. We know that this head coach hunt has taken a very, very long time. And, this is another one that's had some front office issues. And so I think there's just a lot of questions on how the pieces will be put together, but I do think they have the pieces.
Let's
Who
see.
do you have at your number 12?
I have BFC
Mm.
simply because yes, they have these. We're gonna get into it a little bit later. The Albertine Montoya situation, Graham Abel, all that stuff was crazy. They're dealing with a lot right now to start the season. But for me, I noticed a similar thing with Angel City after year one. It gets real now. All the adrenaline after year one and all this like hype of it being a new thing and kind of just, oh, we're here, we're part of something special. It's amazing. Now year two's here, and now it's like, okay, now we got to do it again. And how are we going to be able to get this done? For me, like I don't think they addressed enough in the midfield. I really don't think that Tess Bodie, Joelle Anderson and Dana Castellanos, that doesn't sound like enough to me. Castellanos, well, Castellanos is gone, excuse me. They traded her away. They
Yeah.
traded, exactly. Yeah, so she's gone. So, like, they really don't have much of a midfield now. How much are they going to, between the turnover, right? Because they had so many players gone. I think they're just too reliant on Oshuala and Kundananji to create for them. And ultimately, teams can eventually figure out how to slow them down. And those are the games where you need to win in order to get into the postseason. So for Bay FC, between everything that's going on, this wave of things, I think we have a similar theme here of teams with front office issues. It becomes very, very difficult to try and make the postseason when you have your own issues in-house. So that's where I currently have Bay. All right, coming in at number 11, I have Houston here. I still don't think they are a playoff team yet. I mean, I know that they finally broke that, not making the playoff streak and did it for the first time in franchise history recently. But, the addition of Yasmin Ryan is great. Ultimately, this team's success comes down to Diana Ordonez. And after 8 goals as a rookie, she's got 8 goals total in the 2 seasons since then. Not going to cut it for somebody who has, again, played and shown what she can do at such a high level. Your key striker who you're building the team around, if they score 4 goals a year, you're not going to have much success. That's just the bottom line. And so, unless this is a big year for Diana Ordonez, and I think Houston has to ask themselves, is this going to be our key player, our striker that we want to build around going forward? So yeah, I have them at 11. I think they will be a little bit better than last year. They won't be dead last, but some improvements, but not enough.
So Houston, I have in a different spot for me. I have them just making the playoffs. I have them
Oh,
finishing eighth this
break
year.
it down. Break it
And
down for me.
the reason why, and listen, this might just be me on my crazy talk. I have no idea. But when I see the moves that they made during, the off season, I see a team that is recruiting sleeper picks, that is recruiting people that maybe haven't gotten enough of their shot, and people who are hungry. And of
Okay.
course, you have Yasmin Ryan. If we've proved anything, it's that Yasmin Ryan's transition to the NWSL was flawless. Everywhere she went, going from Portland to Gotham, having a breakout year at Gotham, national team call-ups, her follow, I think, is now like she had that underdog fight in her to get where she is. As and so does a lot of people. But then I'm looking at Delaney Sheehan. She was a core piece of Gotham that no one talked about last year because you have all these other flashy names. She kind of gets lost in the shadows, and I'm excited for this to be a breakout year for her at Gotham. You have someone who excites me like Messiah Bright. Look at the rookie year she had at Orlando. She goes to, Angel City, and Angel City didn't have the year last year, and I don't think she got the chance that she really wanted at Angel City. So I think her ending up at Houston, getting a new home at Houston, on social media, everything seems that she's reignited, that she's, found a love of soccer again, having fun. And so I think when you have those people, and then also like Danielle Colaprico, she was a staple at Chicago, goes to San Diego. She's another one that, at San Diego, we never talked about her when we probably should have sometimes. And so I think that we have a story of unsung heroes, and with a new head coach and everyone finding a fresh look, I think that this could be the year where pieces do get put together. So for me, this is an exciting team. This is a scrappy team. Like if they're gonna want to win, they're gonna have to be scrappy. They're gonna have
Mhm.
to play some not pretty football sometimes, but just get the job done. But this is a team that I do think can shock the world a little bit. My number 11, I do have Portland. We've gotten into Portland a lot, so no need to rehab in our Portland thoughts, but I have them finishing at 11.
Coming up next, then, we also talked about Angel City, so that's a team we've covered. At number 9, we also talked about the Red Stars, so I think we're good there. Racing
But you
Louisville.
skipped my 10. Exactly. My number 10
Yes.
is Racing Louisville. And I think for me, Racing Louisville, I mean, listen, they've yet to make a playoffs. I know it's their goal to make a playoffs. That's what we've been working for. And they seem to have this curse of finishing ninth for all of these years. My question is, they didn't really change anything. They added some rookies, don't get me wrong, but at the start of last season, you have Jalen Howell and Carson Pickett and Abby Erceg. None of them are no longer there. Obviously, you do add, Janine Sonis. You have Bethany Balser that you get added in the mix, but frankly, that squad was still coming up short when it came to playoffs. And so I think it's going to have to be a big step up year from both DeMello and Sears. Obviously, both of them got called into the most recent national team camp, so that's massive for them. And I think it's going to be a matter of can Flint really anchor down the midfield. But I have some defensive questions. Aaron Wright's a fantastic player, a fantastic person, but she can't do some things alone. You've had a lot of injuries back there in that back line. I think those are question marks. So I'm really excited to see what their lineup's going to be and how they're going to really shape this up. But I think I have a lot of questions about Racing Louisville and their tactics in the offseason.
I have them just sneaking in at 8. I think, like you said, can they get over the hump? I think Bev Yanez has done an amazing job coming in and really showing a tremendous ability to lead this team. I really think it comes down to Bethany Balcer's ability to put the ball on the goal. If she can get anywhere from 8 to 10 goals this season, I think they do enough. The biggest thing for Louisville, they are just an awful road team. They have not been able to win away from home. Lynn Family Stadium is why they've been able to stay afloat and end up in the playoff picture. If they could just win a few games on the road, they're going to be in the mix. And Savannah DeMello is someone who is really just a national team level player that is carrying this team. And Louisville has essentially said, this team is yours. Jalen Howell is gone now. And so this is fully her team. And I mean, I think she's going to have a great year. We also got to speak with her at NWSL Media Day and really kind of talk about her journey. We were actually there on the Zoom call when she first got drafted, so it was a little bit of a full circle moment to actually meet her and ask her this question. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We actually spoke to you, I remember, when you first got drafted.
Okay.
Over Zoom, you were incredibly excited about the opportunity and ability, just enter the league. From there until now, how would you describe your journey up until this point? Like,
Yeah.
could you have ever imagined U.S. Women's National Team star,
No.
Louisville star?
No, it's funny actually. So when me and my mom were talking, like right before I got drafted out, I was like, I'm going to give it like 4 or 5 years and see how I really like it. And if it's going well, then I'm going to stay with it. If not, maybe I'm going to like look overseas to like have like an experience where I get to travel. So I never would have thought my experience would have been this way, but I'm really grateful for it. And I think I've learned so much. And I think coming in my rookie year, I had like a massive role as my team right away, which I didn't think was possible, but I think it made me grow immensely. And I played so many different positions for this club. So yeah, and then with national team, it's just there's so many great players and to like play for our country. So just being able to be one of them is always an honor.
How do you feel about the state of the team coming into this year? And obviously you want to push for a playoff berth and go for it all, but what are the overall goals of the team?
Yeah, I think one is to make playoffs, but in order to do that, I think we just have to be more consistent with our performances. And I think if we can do that and play full 90-minute games, then I think we'll be in a good spot. But it's a long season and just taking it game by game. And for me, it's getting my first training with the team, which is going to be like on Monday or Tuesday. So I think that's what I'm focusing on and just getting the group cohesively together.
That was Savannah DeMello, a national team capped player, as well as a star midfielder for Racing Louisville. Now, though, we get into the one agreement that we have, the Utah Royals. It's kind of crazy we put them in the exact same spot too. How do you feel about them?
I'm excited about the Utah Royals this season, and I think that there's going to be 2 players that we're talking about a lot when we're talking about Utah Royals, and they both absolutely showed out in the She Believes Cup and showed us where we are. You have Ali Sentnor and you have Mina Tonka. And I think that those 2 players are going to be the core. I think, you have a lot of exciting other pieces, but if those 2 can create the way that they were able to create that we saw in February, you're going to have an exciting Utah team. And so, and honestly, it's going to be hard to stop when you have the MVP of the She Believes Cup, Amina Tonka, and then Ali Sednar, who had, a couple absolute bangers. So I think the question for me is who else is going to step up? Of course, you need more than 2 players, but I think it's a team that can be very exciting this year. And we saw the momentum come last year. We saw that the push that they really made after the August, decision, especially with Amy Rodriguez and all the turnover there. So I'm excited what momentum can come from them this year.
I agree completely. I think you have, yeah, as long as Ali Sentner continues to get better, like the ceiling is so high for this Royals team. I think Paige Monahan has been named captain, as steady a player as ever. Maybe not great in the goals department, but she's proven that she can do it before. You also have Ana Tejada and a few other players that they brought in on loan. I think there is Ana Guzman, who's like this 18-year-old defender that they got
Yeah,
from Bayern Munich. Yeah, that's a
absolutely.
big, so they clearly went out and prioritized. We're gonna bring some young talent in and hopefully, yeah, spice things up a little bit. We need a little bit of that, that Latin American flair. You know what I'm saying? We need a little bit more of that in the league. So the Royals hopefully will be bringing some of that spice to the league. When we talk about these playoff teams, it's almost like a two tiers we could split them up into. I think it's the current spirit and pride and whatever, we'll get into those, but
Yeah.
they're like the 3 elite teams. And then the Courage and Gotham
Yep.
are the 2 kind of breaking into that top 5. So who do you have coming in at 5?
Absolutely. Obviously, we've both talked about our 6s when we totally disagree about San Diego and Seattle, which does lead me into my number 5. And this is where I have Gotham. I think that Gotham, we've seen all the drama that they seem to have over the
Hmm.
offseason, but they have a steady unit. They've been successful in the past. They know what success tastes like. And I think they have a lot of key factors. I think they have the star power to push the limits. It's just going to be a matter of getting the right connections and having it work the way it works. I think adding Howell into their midfield is going to be probably one of the best moves that a lot of people maybe underrated when that trade happened. Obviously the big talk was Lynn Biendelo going to Seattle in the one part of that trade, but I think Howell going to Gotham is also going to be a great move for her. And so I think that having this kind of talent, and, I'm excited to see some youth there. You have Mac Whitman, 14-year-old, just absolute baller. I think she's going to be getting some minutes. I know that she scored in, preseason. I think that she's an exciting face. And so Gotham's one of those teams that I think just has depth. And I think they're one of the few NWSL teams that I really trust when they have depth. And that's what's exciting about them.
Yeah, so we're in agreement here again. I also have Gotham at 5, and I agree with you. My only thing is like their star players are injury prone. So if at any point Rose or Midge go out, who is going to pick up the slack? Esther and Ella Stevens. Ella Stevens is just one of the best stories in the league. Her growth, watching to see her become the player that she's become, the skilled goal scorer, can really do so many different things for Gotham. Hold up play, she can do everything for them. But between her and Esther, all right, the creators on this team, and Howell's great, but it ultimately comes down to Midge and Rose and their health. If they play the whole year, yeah, look out for this team because they are scary. But if one of them gets any type of nagging thing where it's like you pull a hammy, you tweak something, sprain something, it's tough because of how long this season is. They have depth, but do they have enough? Do they have what they had last year because of how much they let go? I'm not sure. Of course, they're still elite. They still should make the postseason, but they are not a title contender, I feel like they were last year.
I would
Coming
agree with
in,
that. And I think
yeah.
we both agree about our number 4 then too with North Carolina Courage. And I mean, for me, my brief about this is simple. You have two names. You have Shaw and you have Sanchez. And I
Mhm.
cannot wait to see the way that they combine together. I think this team has always, been a playoff team towards maybe the, 5 to 8 part. And I think with that combination, we're jumping into a top 4 position.
I agree completely. And I think Sean Nahas is really underrated, significantly underrated, because he finds a way. Him and his staff, the front office, they just always have a competitive team that they're going to build year in and year out. Rarely do you see them hovering near the bottom of the table. They might have had that like one bad year. And then since then, they have been nothing but steady as ever. Again, Ashley Sanchez, who you mentioned, a bit of a career resurgence since getting traded there. We also spoke to her about that at NWSL Media Day and got the chance to kind of hear her side of the story of how things have gone down. Now she wasn't as descriptive, right? Everyone's so media trained that it's like no one wants to spill anything, right? Everyone is so disciplined and so good, but it's still great to talk to Ashley Sanchez and hear her side of the story. Here it is, guys. So, would you mind just taking us through what this last year has been for you, going from, the ups and the downs and having a career year now in North Carolina?
Yeah, I definitely think that it was a difficult first part of the year. Obviously, being traded and not, knowing about it. But I mean, after that, I feel like I just grew into myself in North Carolina, and I'm really grateful for it now. And I think that's shown on the field a little bit. I mean, it is a new team, and I've never played with any of the players minus like Casey. So it was a big learning experience, and playing with a team that plays a completely different style than Spirit. So that was a little bit of an adjustment as well. But I mean, it was overall such a great experience, and I'm just looking forward to this next year.
Did a flip kind of switch for you when you came in? Was it like, I need to prove to everybody that I'm Ashley Sanchez, or was it kind of just you keep the same mentality throughout all of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was a couple of difficult times for me, and obviously when stuff like that happens, you're like, I want to prove myself, and that was definitely part of it. But I also think just being surrounded by people who people, teammates, coaches who believe in me and like gave me confidence was also a huge part of my success last year.
And do you feel like now you've taken on more of a mentorship role for some of the younger players that are coming in, having been a part of the league now for a few years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. I always like think of myself as a younger player, and then I'm like looking back and I see like Riley Jackson. I'm like, that's not me anymore. So I definitely think that I'm taking on more of a leadership role or some sort of that, just because I have been in the league for a very long time. Even though I'm not that old yet, it doesn't feel like I am, but maybe I am. But yeah, definitely.
And that was Ashley Sanchez, star player for the North Carolina Courage. And like we said, we both have them coming in at number 4. And again, if all of their players, with the continuity that they have an opportunity to break into that top 3 if the continuity is there and if they continue to bring forward that depth and everyone gets better. I think they could break into that top 3. But this top 3 is so strong, and I think we slightly disagree. But honestly, you could put these 3 anywhere. To be honest, we're not sure how it's going to go. Who do you have at 3?
My number 3 is Kansas City Current. And, I think that there's just so many pieces to Current. I do, once again, I don't know that you can even say who is where and how to rank these 3, but you have Temwa Chawinga, and has anyone figured out how to stop her? And I think there's some reinforcements that, I think bringing Rocky Rodriguez is going to be absolutely insane. And I think it's going to bring a new level. DiBernardo, you have a couple other just massive players, but for me, it's going to be who can figure out how to stop Temwa Chawinga in order to stop the Kansas City Current.
Agreed. She has become, I mean, league MVP, right? Like leading goal scorer by a wide margin. She deserves every bit of, accolades that she's receiving. For me, I feel like I put them at 1 because of the loss last year. I feel like they are feeling that. You bring everybody back, but their sense of urgency, I feel, will be a little bit higher because their window of opportunity to win is much smaller. Because all the players you mentioned, Vanessa DiBernardo, Rocky Rodriguez, Lola Banta, all not young players. They don't have that much time. Like, we don't know how much time. I don't want to be that person that's like, oh, they're 32
You're
and now
old.
they're like getting, but like, they only have this 2 to 3 year window before people's bodies start to break down. And like, you play so much together, right? You're putting your body through so much. I really believe that this group this year is going to get it done based on what Vlatko has done in the past and his track record. But again, 1 through 3, again, it's hard to separate them. Who do you have it to?
Yeah, once again, I mean, when we're talking 1 and 2, we're talking 1 game, 2 game differences. Did you watch the Challenge Cup, Row?
Yeah, it was a incredibly fun game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm basing my answer based off the Challenge Cup. And maybe that's absolutely crazy to say something that I'm saying in March, but I have Washington Spirit as my number 1. So I have Orlando Pride at my number 2.
Okay.
Not only because Washington won, I know that game literally went to PKs, but I think that when you have the Washington Spirit team that you have, plus big news of the day, Croy Bethune is on the roster, now an active player. So we're bringing her back. Plus what I saw out of Santos and a couple other of the new acquisitions, I think that this is a fun Spirit team. And when they tap into that, when you have someone like Ashley Hatch, the way that she presses, the way that she defends as a forward, I think is underrated. It's one of the best that there is. You have a bruiser like Hal Hershov who also can distribute and just be absolutely clinical. Then of course you have like a backline that's absolutely solid. The one person that I think was my personal MVP, once again, I love defenders, of the Challenge Cup is Esme Morgan. She absolutely made Barbara Banda not a question. And that is probably one of the biggest undertakings that there is. So for me, you have people like that. You have everything locked into place. I see Washington as my 1 in Orlando. I mean, you got to talk about the talent there, of course. You lose Adriana, but I think one of the coolest things is Rafael. If you can keep her and out of the curse that was Brazilian camp for her last year and have her be on the field, I think you have a very, very dangerous team that's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I still put them at two only because I put Casey ahead of them. But yeah, like you said, their window, because of how young they are, is like they are set up to be very good for a very long time. If they keep this group together, they're just year in and year out, you're looking at a top two, top three team. And now you're talking about a well-rested Trinity Rodman also. And then you also have Jonathan Giraldes, who is getting another year under his belt and is starting to adjust to the tactics and understand how the NWSL works. And that man, scary tactically, what he did at Barcelona, what they figured out to win that many games in a row, to bring it here, the success that they're going to have, they are set up so well. And then Mark Krikorian as the GM does not get enough credit. They almost are starting to look like you can see from all the ACC players that he drafted, the Florida State influence is very, very heavy. He knows exactly which talent to identify. Hal Hirschfeld, McKenna Morris, both from Clemson, and a few other players in the mix to go with Santos and some of those other players. Ulamed Assar as well. So they are just loaded, man. They, as long as again as Rodman is the key, as long as she's good to go, she could have an MVP type season this year if she gets on the stat sheet in the right ways and puts up the right numbers. For me, though, I have Orlando at three, simply because Barbara Banda said it herself. She needs help. She said she needed another star. She's come out to the media and said it. And based on what I was feeling from what I saw at the end of last year, they were undefeated almost all the way through. And once they finally lost that game, it kind of felt like, oh,
Yeah.
they lost their momentum a little bit and they really had to scrap to win that final. It wasn't an easy path at all. It looked like it took everything out of them to have to win it all. And so the question is, after such a big season, can you come back and do it again? Can those players like Summer Yates and Julie Doyle do the job that they've been asked to do and continue to produce? If they can do that, they're going to be fine. But again, eventually teams will slow down Barbara Banda. Eventually, she will have some bad games. It will happen. Teams will start to figure her out. So, same thing with Chewinga. It will take time, but I think Orlando at three for me is where I have them.
I love it. Well, obviously, we
Wow.
have gone through our full 14. I think Ro and I will be posting our full 14 on Girls Soccer Network so you can see our full lineup because obviously we jumped back and forth quite a bit. But more than anything, the NWSL season is back and we simply cannot wait.
Before we get into Sweden and more of what your experience has been like, I think we should touch on the Bay situation first. Two players filed formal complaints, eight players left and requested trades from last year to this year. What do you think about the current situation right now? And it's not a great look for Bay FC based on what they've been doing.
Yeah, it's really not. And that's the most unfortunate thing. And listen, like neither of us are in the Bay FC locker room, neither of us are in the facility. We don't know what happens. Who are we to speculate? But when you have these many stories come out, of course, questions get asked. And frankly, like I think one of the worst things about these sort of investigations is there's never really a winner. And I think
Mm.
that in like the girls that left had to go through something, in their opinion was potentially tragic. There's a coach that is probably stressed out of his mind and obviously I hope the right decision about the right circumstances is made there. And then you have a team right now that's getting ready for their first game of the season with a lot of distractions going on. So
Mhm.
it's interesting. There was some questionable decisions made that you got to ask. One of the biggest ones that stand out to me was the Graham Abel hiring.
Mhm.
Gets hired at BFC and then shortly after, I think resigned a week later after a bunch of allegations came out about the University of Oregon and some of his treatment of players there. But, in my opinion, those weren't exactly secret. There are some
Right.
like a story on Oregon about on the big life with Jordan Wickus, our other podcast. This wasn't new
Wow.
information. And so it almost felt like a lack of vetting or maybe a decision that was made hastily without thinking about consequences or knowing the temperature of a situation. But you got to ask some questions about different decisions that Bay has made in their handling of these situations.
Reports from what we heard from the San Francisco Chronicle, two things that stood out. One of the players claimed that she experienced anxiety attacks and couldn't really was almost scared to play because of what Montoya had said to her in team meetings. And then you have this weird thing that the coaching staff did where if players wanted to meet one-on-one with them, they denied those requests. Which again, like if you're like that's a basic workplace thing around that's not a sports thing. Like you meet one-on-one with your manager, you meet one-on-one with your boss. Like you're supposed to communicate. So that's why that is a terrible look for for them to kind of sit from their ivory tower and say, "Hey, no, we don't want to talk to you. We don't care." Says we don't care about you is ultimately what that message sends. So it is a very precarious situation. And again, it's kind of that old school versus new school. People kind of just put up with it before. And now this new generation, they're not putting up with it anymore. They're saying, "Hey, you're going to give me the respect I deserve. I am worth more than this." And it's great to see it. It's just it's going to take a while before the culture changes and we can transition to the new era. All right. So really have been waiting for this. I wanted to learn more and hear more about your experiences in Sweden. First, I need the pronunciations on Norrköping and Damsvelska. The Damsvelska.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I live in Norrköping, Sweden. Swedish does these weird things where K's turn into like sh sounds every once in a while, but not all the time. So it's a really fun thing to learn. So yeah, it's almost like a shipping. So the whole like story behind the
Nor
town is
shipping.
like the North Shipping plant is like where the city was at one point. So Norrköping,
Okay.
Sweden. So I play for EFCO or IFK Norrköping. And the league I play in is the Damallsvenskan. So Dam is women, and then Allsvenskan, so top division of Sweden. So
Damallsvansken
yep, Damallsvenskan.
and nor shipping.
Worshipping, yep.
That is crazy.
Yep.
I said nor copping. Nor shipping. It's not even close. Oh my God.
Okay, one
Wow.
of my favorite stories was like when I was first moving here, it happened in a blink of an eye, and I didn't know anything about Swedish or where I was moving. And so I was checking in the St. Louis airport and I was flying into like the city next door, which is Linköping. They're like, "Where are you flying to?" I was like, "Linköping." And they're like, "Did we say that right?" And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "You're moving to Sweden, but you don't speak Swedish." I was like, "Pretty much, like, figure this out." So yes, or then there was the time like I was trying to speak Swedish and because these K's are stupid. So I was like, okay, like I'm gonna order my ice cream in school in Swedish. So I was like, ett kula och choklad och ett kula vanilla. And the girl
Uh-huh.
looked at me and she was like, it's Shula. It's not. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. We're doing great. So I never know when it is a K, when it's not a K. We're doing great. So Swedish is really tough.
Like BRB, let me go stand in the corner while I get scolded.
Or worse is like I'll try to order something in Swedish because like jag pratar lite svenska, like I can do this, and then they'll just respond to me in English because they clearly tell I don't speak Swedish. I'm like, great, okay, why even bother?
Right. But so do they, so they don't really speak English. So, or
Everyone, like
do
so
they?
everyone in Sweden speaks English. It's
Okay.
very like well taught, and pretty much everyone does, but
Okay.
especially because I don't live in Stockholm. Like Stockholm, there's English everywhere. But
Mhm.
because I live in like a smaller city, it's not natural. And so I could always act like, jag förstår inte svenska, can do English. And so like I can get by, like that was, I don't understand Swedish, can you do English? And most people can. But yeah, there I try and there's just not always the reciprocation that I want.
Forever searching for your Swedish best friend. Yeah.
I say,
It'll
but
happen. It'll happen.
But yeah, so I currently play at EFCO Norrköping in the Damallsvenskan, and we are on a very similar schedule to the NWSL. And so our season kicks off not this weekend, but the upcoming weekend on March 22nd. We have our first league game, which is really exciting to get into league play again. A little bit of history about my team. So my team was promoted into the top division 2 years ago. So we've been in the top division for 2 years, and that was like we started in Division One 6 years ago when they started a women's team and have worked their way up to that promotion.
Mhm.
We are tied to EFCO men's, obviously. We're under the same club, and EFCO Norrköping men team has been around since 1897. It's one of like the more historic clubs in Sweden. So they like just started funding a women's team 5, 6 years ago. So I played on their team last year. I am having like my 1 year Swedish anniversary, which is very exciting.
That's
Been
awesome.
here for a year. Can't believe I've been here for a year. Absolute insanity. But so our first year in Don Swanson, we finished ninth, which middle of the pack, there's 14 teams. So to finish ninth your first year was, I think, fantastic for the club. That was before I was here. And then last year we upset some people and we finished fifth. So the uphill climb is there. We have a brand new coach this year. He coached at a team up north for 13 years and then moved to North Shipping. And I think it's a fantastic hire for the club. I think it's what we need to take the next step. And top three teams, make Champions League. And that's what we're looking at. And so that's what's circled on all of our, calendars and all of our hearts. One of the first, not steps, but a good practice is we have the Swedish Cup, which is the same as like if you follow English football, the FA Cup, all these different European teams have their own tournament. And the way those kind of work is like, teams from Division 4 play teams from Division 3. The winner plays a team from
Mm.
Division 2. The winner plays Division 1. The winner then plays an Elite team, which is the second division, and then the winner of that game plays a Damallsvenskan team. So we
Mm.
played our one playing game in the fall of last year to qualify for the Swedish Cup for the first time in our club's history, which is really exciting. And then we have a game this Sunday and win, and we're in the semifinals. So really exciting
Wow.
stuff with the team and the club right now, and I just can't wait to get into league play and get going.
And how many other Americans are there with you in the league?
Oof, that's a great question. I joke that almost every team has their token American, and that's definitely like not the right way to say it. There's like some teams that the really interesting thing is like, and I've literally spoken to my GM about this. They have a very hard time scouting Americans because a lot of people don't fully understand like the college system or like the USL Super League compared to the NWSL. And so
Mm.
there's a lot of like certain clubs know to go to certain places, other clubs just stay away. I would say on average, there's one American a team. We have two here. Our goalkeeper played at UCF for 6 years and then was with the San Diego Wave before coming here. And then, of course, myself. And then, there's other teams, but the Swedish team's also really renowned in a sense of a springboard. So you have Emily Gray, who's on Utah Royals, who's on loan to a team in the Swedish league at PTO. And so, you have Lauren Brisky, who was the UCLA goalkeeper, San Diego Wave. She's also at PTO. And so there's plenty of talented Americans. I think two of the ones that stand out that are some of the most underrated, I guess I can still call one of them an American, is Tabby Tyndall is a name to watch out. She is when Haken upset Arsenal back in September, she's the one that scored the goal to help them win 1-0. She's American,
Mm.
played at Florida Gulf Coast, worked her way up from like the third division of Sweden, and now is playing at Haken. Incredible story in like an American player that like I argue needs to be getting national team looks. And then you have Carly Wickenhauser, who played for Texas Tech, is from St. Louis, Missouri. That's how I know her. I grew up idolizing her. She's played in the Swedish league for 6 years. She's worked her way up from Elite to different teams to also being at Haken right now. And then she also just switched her nationality a little bit and just got her first Canadian national team cap. So
Oh.
yeah, there's a lot of talented Americans, and I think it's a really fun league because I would argue this league is a springboard. When you have people talk about the top leagues in the world, of course, you're going to talk about, that whole conversation, NWSL versus WSL. You're going to throw in, Spain, you're going to throw in France. And though I may not throw Sweden into a top league in the world, I think Sweden produces talent that then goes and beats elite in the top divisions in the world. So it's a springboard, and it's where a lot of different leagues look to grab. And so, for example, FC Rosengård won the league last year, was undefeated throughout the league. I think they lost 9 starters because they all got like, I think 5 went to the WSL, another one went to, AC Milan, another one went to all these
Wow.
other massive clubs. So, I mean, it's a real big growing opportunity, which I'm really excited about.
Wow. So it's the league that people should be following to keep an eye on for
That's
future
where you
talent.
stake your claim in players to watch trajectory. I mean, I could name easily so many NWSL stars that people have no idea have starts in Sweden or have moments in Sweden. One that comes to
Right.
my head is Regan Stegletter, who's on Kansas City Current, was at Keith Ordebrew, who is now in the second division for 2 years. There is a lot of talent that has come either through the NWSL or in the WSL, names that people know that got their start in Sweden, and just people don't know it.
So we are approaching the end here. We've got a little bit more left to talk about. We're going to go to England next. The FAWSL has a lot going on, actually. What has stood out to you recently?
I mean, you got headlines galore. One of them, of course, we're going to talk about Naomi Gurma getting her debut, Naomi Gurma getting injured in the 59th minute, something that you absolutely hate to see. All signs posted to nothing overtly serious, which is fantastic, but we're still waiting on official. But I mean, that was obviously heartbreaking for everyone that was like staying up waiting to see the Gurma debut and how it went. And then the FA Cup, we got a Manchester City showdown on one side of the bracket with Manchester United versus Manchester City. And then the other side is going to be Liverpool versus Chelsea after Arsenal got upset. So there's some really exciting things going on.
Yeah, I think the Manchester Showdown is always a good one. I think as a United fan myself, I feel like they truly play better in the cup, it seems like. For whatever reason, they haven't been great in the league trying to break into the top four, but the cup is what they seem to get up for. And Ella Toone, one of my favorites to watch, just a really, really great player. I think, yeah, could we see another Chelsea versus City game? That would be ridiculous.
Absolutely insane. If we get another Chelsea City game, as we covered in the last episode, they're already going to play each other 4 times. So why not
Right.
add another one to the
A
mix?
fifth one. Oh my God. That
Ridiculous.
would be it would be insane. I mean, that has really been the only thing as a driving force right now in this league because one of the problems that the league has been dealing with is Chelsea's dominance. 5 straight league titles. They are on the verge of a sixth, and it doesn't seem like there's other teams that have. Arsenal and Manchester City have not done enough. In spite of the players they've not done enough to challenge Chelsea whatsoever. There's a few teams from the championship that have gone defunct. Reading, a team that was in the top flight and in the championship at different stages essentially went defunct. They willingly relegated themselves to the fourth tier of English football because the owner doesn't want to pay the money anymore. So they have their CEO, Nikki Doucette, has come up with an idea that could really change everything. The idea of removing relegation for a few years, not permanently, but just for a few years to potentially even out the league and create more parity and bring it back to normal because it is very, very top heavy right now. What do you think about that situation?
I have so many different thoughts about this, and I have no idea where I stand, which I know is not
Mhm.
very interesting as a podcast host. But I think for me, like, there's different things to think about. Of course, you want parity in the league. I think that's like a lot of people argue that the NWSL is the most competitive league top to bottom. And
Mhm.
right now, you have teams like Chelsea, and then you have teams like Crystal Palace that are at the bottom, and there is a lot of those situations. I think there also is something special to relegation and promotion. I mean, there's something like we were saying, the story of football, that you can be this division, 4 team and work your way up to finally be in the WSL and work your way up to that. I think there's exciting pathways there and stories there and honestly player discoveries. If we make the WSL no relegation, how does that 18-year-old playing for her local league? Like, there is something special to that you can be at your local team and get noticed because you play in the FA Cup or because this happens, different moments that can come from, promoting with a team and finally getting eyes on teams that would never have eyes on them before. I think, getting rid of relegation can create a hierarchy, but also it might be needed to even it out. So that I think if you're going to do it, you have to commit to only doing it for a couple of years and then bring back promotion relegation. But then that also brings back the question of how often do you then re-stop relegation?
I agree with you, you know, completely in the sense of I've also been very much about tradition and keeping things the way that they are and what it means to the sport. But the more digging I did, the more I kind of realized that this might actually be like the best possible thing simply because women's soccer in England hasn't been included in that same tradition that we talked about. From 1921 to 1971, the FA banned women from playing football. So for 50 years you decided to not include them in the English tradition. So why should they now follow the traditions that you blocked them from? Right? They don't have to follow it because it's not you're basically just lying by saying that they were a part of it and you basically said that it wasn't a sport for women, which is an utterly ridiculous statement, but like that's what they did for so long. So it's like, and then on top of that, the biggest clubs, Manchester United, Liverpool, who have tremendous men's teams, both have come out and said, we're not going to prioritize the women. We're not going to give them the funding and support that they need. And that is ultimately what makes promotion relegation so successful is when everybody has the same amount of at least backing or desire to win. And if those clubs don't have the desire to win because it doesn't make them money, then the system no longer works. And so if they aren't going to get the support that they need in order to be truly competitive, what else can Nikki Doucette do but try to do something to save this thing? Because five in a row for Chelsea is ridiculous. Like it's starting to get out of hand now. So that is my only reason for I'm actually for this to try and just do something new, to try something to fix this because like I said, yeah, to ban them for 50 years and then have everyone come in and say, no, you can't. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us, you know, different from America or whatever. Like ultimately, this is what will consolidate because they don't have enough teams in the championship right now, or they're dwindling. So it's like in order to make both competitive, I do see it having benefit. And again, it's only for a few years. If it was completely removal, then I also would probably be like, okay, I don't think it's too much. As long as it's only for a few years and we can get some stability, I'm good with it. But it's definitely a big, big story. Like again, I think since 1898, I believe, was when promotion relegation was first created. So it's yeah, it is a part of the game. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. They're end of the season. End of the season is when they're going to vote, and I believe two-thirds of the league needs to vote in order for it to pass. So we'll see.
This is the headline
Interesting.
that we will definitely be tracking.
Yes, yes. All right. I believe that is everything we have for you today on episode 77 of Give and Go. I am your host, Rotas Wadera, and as always, with me, I have,
Sam Carey.
and of course, for all the latest and greatest from the world of women's soccer, go to www.girlssoccernetwork.com, on Instagram at Girls Soccer Network, on Blue Sky as well. You can find us there. And of course, our social medias as well. I'm Rowan DeToss 25.
I'm at Sam Carey Angel.
And of course, this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get it, please let us know. Give us feedback. We always want to hear from you. Get in touch with us, please. We are always looking to improve and ways to make this something that is enjoyable for all of you.
Argue with us over our NWSL predictions. Who's your sleeper pick? Where do you think it's gonna go? Where do you think with our top tiers? It'll be an interesting season, and I can't wait to watch.
Exactly. How far were we on? Were we off? Do you think we're completely off base? Like, yeah, just let us know. We would love to talk to you guys about it. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. This is episode 77 and we are signing off. Peace.
Hey, up.